There were many other steps taken to withdraw from parts of the stack and focus our portfolio. We exited network hardware. Even though we had invented this business, we simply failed to exploit it over the subsequent 15 or 20 years. We exited the DRAM business. As mentioned earlier, it is a commodity-based, notoriously cyclical market. Midway through 2002, we agreed to divest our hardest drive business through an agreement with Hitachi. As I write these words, other candidates are under active review. This process of selecting markets and competing on the basis of a distinctive, sustainable competency is essential to the new IBM, and I know it will be an ongoing challenge. Fallacies and myths and lessons. As that work proceeds, it is my hope that the company's new leaders keep sight of some of the higher-level lessons that resulted from these decisions. With OS/2, the fallacy that the best technology always wins. I can understand why this one, in particular, was hard for IBM to accept. In the early days of the computer industry, systems failed frequently and the winner was usually the one with the best technology. So we came to the OS/2V Windows conformation with a product that was technically superior and a cultural inability to understand why we were getting flogged in the marketplace. First, the buyers were individual consumers, not senior technology officers. Consumers didn't care much about advanced but arcane technical capability. They wanted a PC that was easy to use with a lot of handy applications. And as with any consumer product, from automobiles to bubblegum to credit cards or cookies, marketing and merchandising mattered. Second, Microsoft had all the software developers locked up, so all the best applications ran on Windows. Microsoft's terms and conditions with the PC manufacturers made it impossible for them to do anything but deliver Windows ready to go, preloaded on every PC they sold. Even IBM's own PCs came preloaded with OS/2 and Windows. And in the mid-1980s, the Windows marketing and PR machine alone had more people than IBM had working with software partners or distributors. Our wonderful technology was whipped by a product that was merely okay, but supported by a company that truly understood what the customer wanted. For a solutions a company like IBM, it was a bitter but vital lesson. In the case of application software, the myth of account control. This was a term used by IBM and others to talk about how a company maintained its hold on customers and their wallets. It suggests that once customers buy something from a company, then train their people on that product and get familiar with how to support it, it's very hard for them to move to a competitor. As a former customer, I was always offended and indignant that information technology companies talked about controlling customers. I had this quaint view that it was the job of a supplier to serve customers, not control them. What IBM has learned from this part of the unstacking is that we can be the premier integrator and, at the same time, partner with many other companies in delivering an integrated solution. In fact, wearing my customer hat, I could argue that the role of IT partner or integrator cannot be fulfilled by companies that support only one technology or one stack. Beware, customers, of suppliers who provide only Unix or Wintel answers to your problems. Beware of totally proprietary vendors who fight new developments like Linux. These vendors still view the world through the window of their proprietary stack. At IBM, we now focus on a different stack, the customer's business processes and how we can bring world-class technology, both our own and that provided by other leading companies, to improve those processes. In the case of PCS, there are still unanswered questions. Why did we make the decision to exit the application software, network hardware, DRAMs, or the data transmission businesses, but not PCs? Why did we decide to stay in the hardware end of this business, even as we folded our hand on OS/2? In hindsight, was this the right decision? I think it was at the time, but the decision has been painful and costly for IBM. If there is one lesson to be extracted from this saga, I think it's about staying true to one's strategic vision. I said in 1993 that the marketplace would drive every important decision we at IBM made. But when it came to the PC business, we weren't paying attention to either our customers or our competitors. One competitor in the PC industry was proving that customers were perfectly willing to buy direct, over the phone, or later via a website. But we were painfully slow to move away from our existing distribution channels. Why? The incomplete and unsatisfying answer at the time was that we'd always done it that way. I'm not saying the shift to lower-cost, direct channels wouldn't have involved some pain, and I'm not saying that actually sticking to a strategic vision is as easy as articulating it. The tendency, especially in a hyper-competitive marketplace, is to establish a position, hunker down, and defend it. But if we had focused on the marketplace and done our homework, there's no reason the IBM PC business today would be looking up the leaderboard at Dell. Opening up our stack and our minds to others had many positive effects on IBM. It cut our losses and improved our integrated offerings to customers. And it freed up resources to invest in the future. Huge sums of money and huge quantities of brainpower have been redeployed from wall-banging futility to exciting new work in areas such as storage systems, self-directing computers, bioinformatics, and nanotechnology. It is all about focus, a subject I will return to later. 18. The emergence of e-business. You'll recall that earlier I said I've gotten lucky twice. I described the first piece of luck as my initial encounter with Denny Welsh, the executive who shared my vision for transforming IBM into a services-led company. Believe it or not, Denny also played an integral role in my second bit of luck, more on that in a moment. Long before my arrival at IBM, one of the most widely discussed technology trends in business centered on what was called a convergence, the melding of telecommunications, computing, and consumer electronics, or, stated differently, the merger of traditional analog technologies with their emerging digital kin. Depending on one's point of view, this either promised or threatened to transform multiple industries. The subject was not foreign to me. In February 1983, in a speech at the University of Virginia, I made the following observation: computer and telecommunications technologies give us a reach and flexibility that were beyond imagination just a few years ago. Technology has virtually eliminated distance as an obstacle to doing business. Today, an American Express card member from Dallas can buy a plane ticket in Kuala Lumpur and have the purchase authorized in less than 6 seconds by our computer system in Phoenix, Arizona. During my brief tenure on the board of directors of AT&T, I had learned a great deal about the allure of convergence. That company had bought a computer company, NCR. Some years before that, IBM had bought a telecommunications equipment company, ROLM. Both had placed bets on convergence. And they weren't alone. If you were a telephone company back then, you were salivating at the prospect of getting beyond dial tone and voice services to provide all kinds of higher value services, data, entertainment, and commerce to homes and businesses. If you were in the entertainment or media business, convergence represented the ultimate distribution channel. Not only would you be able to digitize all your content, you'd be able to deliver it to devices from personal computers and smart TVs to cell phones and network-enabled wristwatches. Consumer electronics companies were dreaming up a panoply of devices that would allow billions of people to access this world of digital information and entertainment. And the information technology industry was gearing up for an explosion of demand for the hardware and software that would manage, process, and store the world's digital content. So, as I started to probe the strategic thinking inside IBM in 1993, I wasn't surprised to find a number of people who were very excited about this issue. Which brings me back to straight-shooting Denny Welsh. Discovering the cloud. In August 1992, Denny had landed IBM's largest single contract ever, the outsourcing of all of Sears' data center operations. As part of that contract, IBM and Sears merged their private data networks into a joint venture company called Advantis. It was classic Denny. He'd been battling IBM to make our global network part of his services organization, but he was getting nowhere with colleagues who couldn't quite see his vision for making the network a big-time profit center. In one stroke, he not only closed an $8 billion contract with Sears, but he gained control of more network capacity. Eventually the joint venture with Sears was dissolved. We took total ownership and Advantis became part of what we called the IBM Global Network. In its day, IGN was one of the world's most sophisticated networks. It was also the largest internet service provider in the world, truly an asset without equal, a moneymaker. And our stake in the ground in the networking business. Years later, and as I described in the previous chapter, we divested ourselves of the global network in a $5 billion transaction with AT&T. What I didn't mention was that as early as 1993 we knew we'd eventually sell this business. In one of the first conversations I had with Denny, we agreed that in the long term we'd never be able to justify the massive capital investments required to compete with the telcos. With their assets and base of capital equipment, they could easily undercut our prices. What we couldn't see back then was the internet, which would entirely obviate the need for us to own a network. It had to be in one of these early discussions with Denny that I was introduced to the cloud, a graphic much loved and used on IBM charts showing how networks were going to change computing, communications, and all manner of business and human interaction. The cloud would be shown in the middle.